recorded. I'll make sure we're recording right now. And of course, there's a couple different places that you can access these recordings. So within, I should say from inside real estate, we do have a YouTube channel where they're posted, and we do occasionally post them in our Facebook group as well. Now you can go directly to Facebook or the YouTube channel, but I always like to make sure that all of our users know that these links can also be accessed through KV Core itself. So through our live training calendar, which is one of the ways that you can go to register for these webinars, or again, you can scan that QR code that I had up on the screen. But through the live training calendar, again, there's that Facebook group, YouTube channel. Just for fun, I always like to share these out in the chats. Pop them on in there. We do try to make sure on a regular basis at the beginning of the weeks, we typically try to post in the Facebook group what the upcoming topics will be for the week. Let me see if I can find that sheet just to put up on our screen for anyone that's curious what our Wednesday and Thursday sessions will be this week. So for this week, today we're talking about bulk importing contacts. Tomorrow will be held by our training director, Kelly, and one of our trainers, Tess, on scripts, what to say to your leads. And then our Thursday session will be with my fellow trainer, Christina, talking about how to send listings to your contacts. Now, keep in mind, while all these sessions have a set tip or trick, they are also Q&A, so you're welcome to jump in and ask your questions live. Of course, feel free to pop, if you have KV Core related questions, feel free to pop those in the chat or Q&A now or anytime as we go through today's presentation. I'll try to either weave it into today's conversation if the topics are related, or try to save some time at the end to make sure I'm answering your KV Core related questions. Now, I also mentioned these success meetups are recorded and added to our YouTube channel. And I'm actually going to direct you guys right to the playlist page because when you click on the YouTube channel through the live training calendar, it sends you to an older playlist. I like to go directly to our playlist page. And there you can see there's our success meetup playlist, all the past recordings, over 100 videos in there now. And then additionally, if you're a beginner with KV Core, highly recommend Mastering KV Core Tools for Success. Has some of our most popular success meetups, specifically videos on individual commonly used tools in KV Core, like landing pages and smart campaigns. So oftentimes when agents have questions, I might actually refer them to this playlist in particular. I'm going to go ahead and share this out in the chat. And then just to make sure I'm covering all my bases, whenever I teach one of these success meetups, I usually like to make a handy guide for you guys that I also share out in the chat. And of course, I always include my recordings on my guides, as well as I typically sometimes will get access to that recording, maybe even before it's posted on YouTube, which YouTube usually gets up there within, I would say, 48 hours. Now, before I share out this guide, I should probably introduce myself just in case we got anyone new here today. My name is Mariel Ortiz. I teach a lot of our Tuesday sessions. I'm actually going to be teaching our Wednesday session next week. You'll often also find me at How It Works webinars, orientations, build your pipeline sessions. So teach a lot of intro classes for agents, and I also teach a lot of classes on bulk importing contacts. Before I became a product trainer with Inside Real Estate, I was a part of our lead configuration team. That is our team of specialists that help handle bulk importing contacts into your new CRM. So I've got a little behind the scenes knowledge that I love to share with all of our new users and repeat users too. If you're regularly importing into KV Core and you want to know a little bit more about doing that yourself or more about the behind the scenes process, stick around. We'll talk about it today. But as I mentioned, when I teach these sessions, I like to create a handy guide. So let's share that guide out in the chats. Here we go, guide going down. You should be able to click into your Zoom chat and open this sheet up on your screen. Now, this guide, whenever I create a guide, I usually kind of outline what we're talking about here today, but I always make sure to hyperlink a couple links to our support articles on various topics. We do actually have a support article on some best practices when it comes to prepping your spreadsheets of contacts before importing them in. We've got support guides on how to import your contacts. There's a link here to our import template if you've never seen it before. We've got links. You can actually book a one-on-one Zoom screen share with one of our import specialists. And then, of course, when you import your contacts, you also want to strategize about how you intend to follow up with those contacts after they've been imported. So I've got some support articles on smart campaigns and search alerts as well. Let's see. Issues with seeing the screen. Let me pause my share real quick and try sharing it again just to double check that. Not sure if that helps for you guys. And then additionally, we'll go ahead and we'll make the screen just a smidge larger. I hope that helps on your end. You may have to, I would say, double check your end. Oh, much bigger. Excellent. Love to hear it. Okay. And I do see, Donna, your questions in the Q&A. All right. And we'll talk about that a little bit we'll talk about the deleting multiple contacts a little bit. When it comes to your Zillow reviews, we can jump into websites towards the end there, and your vanity URL. Never see the templates. You know, that actually sounds like a support issue, and I would probably recommend that you reach out to support about that question. Have you reported it to support before? For anyone who's newer to KV Core, I encourage you to, if you're seeing anything that looks like a bug or an issue, something that should work properly, but for whatever reason, you don't know where to report to, yeah, don't worry, let's talk about it. So support can be reached out to in two main ways. Now, I'm always going to recommend reaching out to chat support before email. Tends to give you a faster response. So in the bottom right-hand corner, majority of our users will see a little smiley face icon here. And if you go to click, oh, I've already been poking around in here. If you go to click, you'll see this screen typically. And there will be an option to send our support chat a message. Just a little heads up, when you initially ask a question of our support team, you are responded to by a bot. Very smart bot, answers 35% of questions on its own. That's the way it's supposed to work. So for example, maybe I wanted to say, can I connect a vanity domain? Now you can of course chime in with if you have questions, concerns, if there's a bug or sort of issue. So it's given me a little bit of information here. I can let the bot know if that helps, ask it to show me more, or if I just want to talk to a real person, I just click on wait for the team and it's going to put you next in line for chat support. So just a little heads up there. I know some people, when they go and chime in here, they're like, oh, I can talk to chat, and they're responded to by bot. And then, it can sometimes throw you a little bit. So just so you guys are all well aware, that's how it works. You can also shoot them an email, kvcore@insiderealestate.com. But again, I always recommend using chat first as the primary option. You'll typically get a faster response time. All right. So yes, I would definitely report at least that first issue with your vanity domain to our support team, because if it continuously says it's checking the security and never responds, that doesn't sound like that's operating correctly. So I might bring that to their attention, and they'll be able to kind of go behind the scenes and figure out what's going on there. Potentially same thing with your Zillow reviews as well. I know we're going to talk about importing contacts, but this is on my mind, so I'm going to answer this first. Hope nobody minds here. If you head on over to your web and IDX here, for anyone who's not familiar, you have the ability through your site content to add in testimonials and connect Zillow reviews. Now, if you haven't already manually entered one testimonial, you'll have to do that step first. By manually creating at least one testimonial, it's going to create a testimonials page on your website. So here's my demo KD Core website. If you hover over the Your Agent tab, I've added in testimonials. So you can see there's a testimonials page there. And then that's really all you have to do. That has to be created first before you should be able to connect over Zillow reviews. If you've already done that step and this continues to be a problem, yeah, I apologize if that wasn't explained. And I can absolutely, just because I'm a big fan of our support articles for resources, let me also pop a support article in the chat about testimonials. All right, testimonials. It's going to be under Web and IDX content overview, how to manually add testimonials and how to sync your Zillow testimonials. I believe, I would hope it says somewhere in our support article that you do have to manually enter them in first. Yeah, we'll have to at least manually enter one. But yeah, I'll pop that in the chat. Yeah, I apologize if that was, overlooked at any point in your training, but that should hopefully fix that problem for you. Again, if it continues to be a problem where you can't connect Zillow reviews, reach out to our support team. All right, let's talk a little bit about importing contacts. And we'll talk a little bit about deleting contacts in the mix as well. Try to answer that question for you too, Donna. All right. So referring back to the guide that I shared out in the chat, again, I've got some handy support articles. I encourage you guys, if you still have an import to do, hopefully you guys take advantage of what you learned here today and apply it. That's the best way to make sure that you don't lose what you learn. I've got a lot of other helpful support articles attached here. And of course, I'll update this sheet with the recording link within a couple of hours by the end of day today. All right, but starting at the top, let's talk a little bit about tips for starting. I have a lot of users out there that may feel like, maybe they have access to a new KD Core platform, but you don't know where to get your contacts from in the first place. You don't know, you know that you have contacts, but you don't know how to kind of generate a list to add to your CRM in bulk. I want to let you know that if you had a past CRM or database, if you had a lead generation tool that you used online, if you have, contacts in your MLS, in your email, in your phone, those are all typically sources that you can export contacts from. I will mention, I've got some support articles linked at the bottom. How to export contacts from common sources does have a couple support articles in it for, say, exporting email contacts. I think there's also a link for exporting iPhone contacts. We have taught some past webinars about these topics before. You might find them on our YouTube channel. Additionally, I'll probably be teaching another series here soon. I usually like to, bring up these topics again every, 3 or so months, just for any new people that are not familiar with this. So we're getting this content back in front of you. So we'll probably have a session in a couple weeks from now about bringing in email contacts. And I'm also going to have a separate success meetup about bringing in phone contacts. Because if I try to jam it all into one, it tends to be a little bit too much information and would tend to take up the whole hour. So we'll talk about that in another session. But typically you could do a quick Google search, say, how do I export contacts from, here we go, Outlook, Gmail, iPhone, and of course, if you have a past CRM or database, again, it's usually easy to either find that through Google or your past lead gen tool, your past CRM might have a support team or support articles that you can reference for details. All right. Additionally, if you really wanted to, you can enter contacts directly into a blank spreadsheet as well. We've got a couple of videos about that. There's one specifically called the 10 by 10 method. And of course, we'll talk about how you could enter contacts directly into our import template as well. We'll give some examples. All right. Now, once you have your file of contacts, I've got a couple tips about when it comes to prepping your list. And we've got a support article included here and a couple key pieces of information I want you guys to think about is at the very least, this is going to seem like a very obvious step to a lot of you out there, but please, please, for me, for you, make sure that you're checking your files. Even if you're planning on submitting them over to our team, make sure you're checking the information in your file. Make sure all your contacts are in there. It's surprisingly easy to accidentally maybe just export a single contact from your phone rather than exporting everyone. You may think you've selected all your contacts, but things happen. And occasionally, there's system bugs. It happens. Maybe you're exporting from your CRM and they're having a glitchy day and it doesn't bring over all your data. Or sometimes files can be corrupted. Now, if you're not very comfortable with spreadsheet software, I get a lot of users that say, I don't pay for Excel. You can use Google Sheets. It is free. It's available for all people, very user friendly. You can also find videos not on our YouTube channel specifically, but on YouTube in general on how to better use Google Sheets if you need some reference. And you don't have to do a ton of work with prepping your list, but it's a good idea again to check that all your information's there and maybe think about removing junk contacts as well. That way you're starting your database off fresh. Additionally, if you're new to KV Core, there's a couple key pieces of data that we recommend having in each of your files. So for example, first name and last name is a really great option, not only because it's going to make it easier for you to search and sort your contacts in your CRM. So here we go. You can see them by name. But additionally, when you're sending things like mass messaging to your contacts or using the automation tools in KV Core that are using, say, a template, a lot of these templates are going to auto merge in their name. And if you don't have their name included, that messaging is not going to quite look right. So I can send this same email to, say, 10 individuals in my database all at the same time. Each person's going to receive a message that looks like it was written for them. While we're here in the CRM, quick reminder, if you haven't explored your CRM, you got a little more actions drop down here on the right, allows you to do a lot of actions in mass. If you do need to add labels to contacts in mass, change their status in mass, add a campaign to them, or delete contacts in mass, it's right here from the more actions. So you just check the contacts you want to delete, click delete contacts. It's right here in your CRM. All right, now besides having full name, we've got mass email and mass text here from the CRM. So it seems like a pretty good argument in favor of making sure that your contacts have an email and a cell phone number. I do want to mention for anyone out there, if your contacts are missing an email or a cell phone number, or if they're, say, missing their full name, that doesn't mean that they can't be imported into KV Core. We just recommend it as a best practice. Additionally, having email for your contacts is going to be immensely helpful if you're concerned about duplicate contacts. So for example, I've got my contact here, Bob Smith, and we'll pretend Bob here, we'll pretend his email address says bob@gmail.com. If I go to import another file and Bob happens to be in that new file I'm importing, as long as he has the same email address, bob@gmail.com, when I go to import him, the system will actually flag that he's a duplicate contact and not import him a second time. I will mention, of course, it does not merge those contacts together. So if you have a file or say multiple files with the same contacts, but different contact information for them, it's probably worthwhile to merge your spreadsheets first. And there's a couple different resources. You could probably reach out to that. I know a lot of users might look at something like Fiverr and maybe hire someone to merge their files if you don't want to do it yourself. There is options like there's definitely a lot of training resources you could probably find online. I will mention our import team will not merge files for you. That's because it's a free service. They can't do that for everyone. It would probably really slow down their bandwidth. And we want to make sure this is available to all of our agents. But I believe additionally, I think done for you services, I think they can help with imports as well. So that's another option as well. If you've never checked out our marketplace tab, done for you services. Now they typically do things like it's very easy for them to create custom campaigns and ads and newsletters and blog posts, but I believe they can also offer some import help as well. All right. Oh, we're not quite done with prepping your list. Last couple things I want to mention is status, teal type, hashtag, and source. Again, if you're new to Kiwi Core, I apologize if these phrases seem new to you. Status, deal type, hashtag, and source are how we label contacts at Kiwi Core. And for those, I'd love to get a feel if there's a lot of you that aren't familiar with these and you want me to define them, feel free to, say yes in the chat or raise a hand, give me some sort of reaction, and I'm happy to define those. If I don't see a lot of reactions, we'll probably skip over that for now. As if you're going through training, a lot of you probably are already learning about this, but I am seeing, okay, we're getting a couple raised hands here. So we'll take a quick little dive down status, deal type, hashtag, and source. All right, one more resource that I'm going to point out before we define those. I believe I also usually include in my guide a link to our Kiwi Core dictionary. Now, I like to point out this support article at every opportunity because it defines a lot of the terminology we use here at Kiwi Core. And specifically, I like that there's a little section here on basic categories for your leads. So we have those support articles linked. Now, I'll mention lead type or deal type is pretty straightforward. That's labeling what type of deal you'd like to do with a contact. Are they a buyer, a seller, a renter, someone real estate adjacent, who we would call a vendor? So that might be a title rep or someone to use for home stagings or repairs. And you can also have other agents as a deal type. So those 5 are pretty simple to define. Everyone's going to have at least one deal type in Kiwi Core. Hashtags, additionally, can usually be pretty easy to understand, as hashtags are your own custom labels for your contacts. They're actually optional. Don't have to use hashtags for your contacts, but I don't think I know a single agent that doesn't take advantage of these, because you can create whatever groups you'd like. So whatever phrases. Maybe you want to group up your contacts based on a feature they're looking for in a home, or group your contacts by their general timeline, like buyer 2023, or looking in 3 to 6 months, or not looking. So you can create as many hashtags as you like, whatever phrases you like. I will mention there's no spaces in your hashtags, so they do need to be kind of all one word. So for example, if I were giving hashtag first time home buyer, I'd make that all one word with no spaces in between the different words. All right, so hashtags, deal type, status, I always think needs a little bit more explanation. If you're coming over from a past CRM or database, you might have had something similar to status that labels kind of where that contact is in their home buying or home selling journey. But at Kiwi Core, we have very specific set status options. And I always think it's important to get to know these well, as every contact's going to have a status. And these statuses help correlate with which automation message or what smart campaign is most appropriate for that contact or lead. So there's a status for, say, your sphere of influence contacts. At Kiwi Core, we kind of think of that as a catch-all. So they're contacts which you know who may or may not be searching in real estate. So this could be your friends, could be your family members. It could be those lenders or title reps you're adding in here. It could be if you decide to add in other agents, they would all probably fall into that sphere category. Now, your prospects are people you know or have information for, and you're looking to convert to a real estate lead. Your prospects might also be, say, a long-term prospect. They might not be actively searching right now. So your prospects may be maybe purchase a for sale by owner list. You might not have met them personally, but you have that serious real estate interest. They're definitely looking to, sell that home, but maybe not looking to work with you. So that's what you're working to, that's what you're working towards. You're looking to convert them. Another great example of a prospect, maybe a lovely couple that's waiting for their last kid to flee the nest, so to speak, wait until their kid graduates from college so they can maybe downsize or move locations. They might not be ready right now, but they are a prospect. Your new leads are those that you know next to nothing about. Maybe they sign up through your website or an advertisement of some sort. And while it might be easy to assume if they sign up on an ad about $1 million mansions that they're a serious lead, with those internet leads, we always want to make sure that we're trying to engage with them, start a conversation to really determine what's their actual price point? What's their actual timeline? How seriously are they looking? Because some of those new leads that we generate might have just been poking around and didn't even realize what it is they were signing up for. So those new leads are ones that we have yet to speak to, we're looking to engage with. The active leads are those actively returning to your websites, actively communicating with you. Hopefully that timeline's coming up soon. They're hopefully just the steps before you've converted them or won them over as your client. And then, of course, there's statuses for who's a current client in your database, who's got a contract or transaction pending, and if you've closed a deal with them. I will mention for that closed status, that is most appropriate for leads or contacts that you just closed the deal with. So for your long-term past clients, I might actually give them a status of sphere and maybe just a hashtag of, say, past client, because our closed status correlates with our default closed smart campaign in KV Core. And if you decide to take advantage of that smart campaign, you turn it on, it's going to send them a message 30 days after you put them on the campaign. It's going to send them out an email that says, wow, it's been a month already. How's the new house? So again, that closed status is really most appropriate for those you just closed a deal with. If you decide not to use the campaign, feel free to put the closed status on your past clients too, if you'd like. But if you're using the system as intended, again, that's meant for the newly closed contacts. Last but not least, you've got archived, which is an alternative to deleting your leads. So for example, maybe a new lead comes to your website, it gets put on some automation, then sends a message saying, hey, unsubscribe me, or I'm not interested, or something less friendly. It happens. I could delete that lead, or I could just change their status to archived. And what that's going to do, I'll head back to the KV Core Smart CRM real quick. What that's going to do is it's going to filter them. I'm going to go click on my filters. There's all those statuses we just talked about. It's going to put them in their own subsection of my CRM, so I won't get them mixed up with my other contacts, and unsubscribes them from any automated communication. It just holds on to any past history I have with them, so I can see in their timeline if I sent them emails or what they responded with. And that can be really helpful if that new lead ever goes, or that archived lead ever goes back to my website, maybe 6 months or a year from now, they change their mind. Rather than getting entered in all over again like a brand new contact, it's just going to pull them out of that archive status. So I still get to see all that past history, and I'm reminded if I go look at that contact, oh, that's right. They told me that they weren't interested 6 months ago. All right. So those are the main labels of KV Core. Oh, and source, of course, is just the source of where the lead came from. When you're bulk importing a file of contacts, you can choose all of these things: status, deal type, if you want any hashtag labels, and the source of where the lead came from. A couple things to mention. if you don't include this information in your file, I know some of you out there might be wondering what happens if I don't, maybe label contacts with these labels. With status, again, every lead gets a status. So if you don't choose one, by default, they are labeled as a prospect. With deal type, if one is not selected, by default, they're labeled a buyer. Hashtags are optional, but they will receive what's called an import hashtag. An import hashtag just says hashtag import, the date that that import was selected, and it'll have a couple digits after it as well. Let me see if I can find an example for you guys in my database. I'm going to search by my hashtags for one that starts with import. So we can see this import here might be a little tiny to see, but it says import 2023-01-13. So it was added on the 13th of January. And it just helps to organize the groups of contacts you've imported. So this is something that's automatically created by the system, whether you handle that import or whether you send it over to our team. And it makes it very easy if, say, you do an import and then think, oh, I did this wrong. I need to remove them all. You can search by that hashtag. Let me go in and filter for those. And I could very easily delete those in mass. Looks like I just imported one person with this. Looks like I just did a little demo to see if question marks would import with the name there. All right. And then last but not least, source. If you don't choose a source in your file when you're importing your contacts, their source will say lead import, because that's where KV Core thinks it came from an import. All right, pausing real quick before we continue on and we really get into this. Let me double check what I'm missing in that Q&A. Let's see. Okay, we'll see what we can spend on website time today. If not today, then, I definitely might refer you to some other videos. Let's see. Set them on a mailer list and they're listed Sphere. Are they already receiving emails from me? Yeah, great question. So depends. I would double check here what smart campaigns you have set up in KV Core. So I would definitely say for things like your new leads, those are typically set to trigger a smart campaign. Additionally, your prospects, new leads, and active leads that are viewing things on your website can automatically get set on things like search alerts. Consumers can also sign themselves up for market reports through your website. But a lot of these statuses, especially if you're bulk importing contacts, it shouldn't automatically trigger a smart campaign unless you've chosen one. There is a smart campaign in here specifically. There's a couple different variations for Sphere contacts that you can check out from our KV Core library. But unless you've specifically chosen that campaign and turned it on and requested that when you imported your Sphere contacts, it shouldn't automatically be sending out that messaging to them. And yes, you can bulk hashtag or bulk adjust their status through this smart CRM. So again, that's through that little, let me open this a little larger here. This more actions drop down. Again, you can add hashtags in mass, change their status in mass. The only thing you can't change in mass, unfortunately, is that deal type for your contacts. So that unfortunately is still an individual process. I will mention, of course, don't worry too much about this if you need to go back and make some manual adjustments. Your contacts and leads never see what it is they're labeled with in your smart CRM. They don't see their status or deal type or their hashtags. It's just for you. So don't worry if you've got a contact that's labeled as a buyer and it's really just your friend or family member. They have no intention of buying from you. They'll never know that's how you have them labeled. Okay. All right. So we've talked about prepping that list. I want to kind of speed things up a little bit just to make sure that we fit in everything we need to. And I know we had some questions. Oh yeah, be careful with those hashtags. There is still a chance that your larger broker admin might be able to see what hashtags you have applied to some contacts. So I would be careful about that. But again, these are generally just for your own organization. But let's see. Let's talk a little bit about the do-it-yourself or let us handle it option real quick. And then we'll try to squeeze in a little bit about websites before we wrap it up here. All right, and then maybe we'll talk about what to expect after importing another time. I do have some suggestions here. If you want a great mass email template that you can send out to re-engage with your contacts after they've been imported, I've listed here the imported leads default email. That's a great one. If you're not quite sure how to check back in after you've imported everyone, you can go click on mass email, click on our templates. And again, it's the imported leads default email. Not a bad one to check back in with your contacts. Shares out your website URL, so it helps direct users to the website. It helps get them to start a conversation with you to find out where they are in their home buying or home selling process. All right, but really quick, let's head over to the lead engine and talk just a tiny bit about the bulk lead import method. All right, from bulk lead import, here is where you go. If I scroll on down to either handle the import yourself or let our team handle it. There is some helpful videos here. There is a link to our support guide on importing contacts. It does include our template. And then of course, if you're sending it over to our team, you're just filling out a short submission form. Now, I do believe I have a past video of filling out the submission form. You can probably find it through our YouTube channel if you type in importing. If not, I'm happy to do that in a future video. It's really only asking a couple questions here. The most important things that submission form is asking is who your leads should be assigned to, who owns them. So if you're bringing in your own contacts, they should probably be assigned and owned by you. It's also going to ask you what you want in terms of status and hashtag and deal type. If you add those to your file beforehand, it's definitely a little bit easier and a little bit more straightforward when they come in. They're all labeled exactly as you intended. And then additionally, that submission form will ask if you want any automation to trigger as soon as those contacts are imported. So would you like them to receive a smart campaign or search alert? If you want them to receive search alerts, that's more information that you'd need to have in your file. At the very least, you need to let our team know what area those leads are searching for homes. And then if you want a smart campaign to run, just know that campaign should be turned on in your KV core account. Again, those were under the marketing tab, Smart Campaigns. And you will need to give them the name of the campaign you want to run, specifically by name. And they'll apply it to your leads. And again, after about a business day, that's usually how long it takes, they'll send you a confirmation email that your import was complete. Please make sure you're checking those contacts in your CRM after they're imported. And if after 24 hours, if you notice some contacts are missing or not all the information looks correct, you can respond to the confirmation email that they send you to ask any questions that you have. And that should reopen your case with them and they can help assist. It's very easy for them. If they handle your import, very easy for them to mass delete that import and re-import it if that's what's necessary. All right. And additionally, if you need help filling out that submission form, if you take a look at it on your own and you're lost, you can book a time with our import specialists. If you go through the process of editing your own file because you want to import yourself, but you want someone to check your file before you import it, you could book a time for that. Or if you just want someone to reassure you before you submit your file over that all the information in your file is going to come over, again, you can book a time for that. It's a Zoom screen share, so it's kind of like what we're doing here. You share your screen with them. I do recommend being at your computer. Please don't book a time if you know you won't be able to be available at your computer, if you can help it. I know sometimes things happen, but do try to be at your computer. Do try to have your file handy for your appointment with them. And then you can share your screen, show them your file, and they can help advise you from there. And it is 30 minutes, while it sounds like a nice appointment, can go by very fast. So make sure you know what it is you need help with when you're meeting with them. All right, but one more piece about this do-it-yourself method before I wrap it up here. I know I talked kind of extensively about the let us handle it method. I do recommend it for 99.9% of our users, just because it's easy, it's efficient, it's free. And of course, you can submit as many files as you like this way. You just fill out a separate submission form for each. So I think it tends to be much simpler just to submit it and send it on over. But if you did want to handle the import yourself, that's absolutely an option. I do recommend reviewing our import guide. Again, it's linked here, or it's also linked in the guide I shared out in the chat with you guys. And I do recommend checking our import template. I will mention, if you are one of our Canadian users, there is a different Canadian format of the import template. You'll find 2 additional fields there, as our team will need to know, if you have expressed or implied consent and the date that your leads gave consent. So a little different for my Canadian users. But if I go and open this template, just a brief piece of advice I'll share to anyone who really wanted to import their own contacts. If you want a nice blank template to review, the template all fields is a great one. So I'll just quickly show that on my screen. So just a blank template with all our headers. If you want an example, commonly used fields, this has some fake leads in here. If you wanted to try to go through that import process yourself, you want to test it out, say, or just see some examples of how we would label with maybe hashtags and status and things like that. You can see that all here. But the all fields template, the important thing to note if you're trying to import your own contacts is the names of the headers are so important. You're going to want to take the time, if you're importing your own contacts, to match the phrasing we've got here. Now, the order of the columns doesn't really matter. If I have a birthday column in my file listed before first name, that's a-okay. And additionally, I don't have to use every single field in here. Maybe nobody in my spreadsheet has a title of Mr. or Mrs. or Dr. So I could actually just delete that column if I wanted to. But the phrasing is what's important. So for example, if you're bringing over contacts from a CRM or your phone or your email, I guarantee there's probably a phone column in your file, but it probably doesn't say cell phone 1. It might say phone. It might say mobile phone, it might say cell phone, but it probably doesn't say cell phone 1. And if you go to import that file into KV Core without either editing what the header says or physically kind of matching it to the correct field, that data won't import to the correct spot in your CRM. So your contacts could be missing phone data when you go to import them. So not to discourage anyone if you want to handle your own imports, but again, a little bit more time investment because you're going to want to make sure these headers match. And additionally, just a couple columns that I want to point out that throw people off sometimes. These email opt-in, text on, and phone on. This is what allows you to email, text, and call your leads through KV Core. These should all say true in the box unless you don't have permission unless you don't want to have permission for those in KV Core. So for example, if you're importing someone that you know is not on a do not call list, put false in the phone on box rather than true. Our import team would do this for you automatically if they were importing your contacts, but if you're doing it yourself, make sure you're including these fields. So a lot of people say, I don't know what these apply to, so they just delete them. So make sure you're including those. All right, folks. All right, if you have any more import questions, feel free to pop those in the Q&A or chat, but I know we had some questions about websites, so I want to make sure we check on those. And let me double check. Okay, someone wanted more information on websites too. Thanks for letting me know. Someone said they imported several contacts, a sphere of influence, past clients, etc., and been communicating with them via mass text. Last week, when I was doing a mass text, I received a message that a lot of my contacts will not get my text. Okay, so there is some updates with KV Core about, oh yeah, absolutely. Sorry, Teresa just mentioned in the chat. She wants that template that I shared out in the chat, or template I pointed out. You can find it through our import guide support article. You can also find it here. I've linked it here, but I'll pop it out in the chat as well. There it is. Keep in mind this template, you can't type directly into it. You're only going to have view access. So that's what this welcome page mentions. You got to make a copy or download the spreadsheet. So don't forget to make yourself a copy if you want to type into it. All right, but someone mentioned in the chat they're having issues with mass texting through their CRM after they bulk imported some contacts. So there is an issue with, we're noticing more and more that different phone carriers, and this isn't exclusive to KV Core, this is amongst a lot of different CRMs and databases out there, that a lot of text messages get flagged by the cell phone carrier that they are spam text messages. So they don't actually are received by the consumers. So to help combat that, there are more rules that are getting put in place, not just again with KV Core, but through a lot of CRMs about mass texting. So for example, in some instances, you might see that when you go to import your contacts, if you try to send them all a mass text, it might not allow that initially. You might have to reach out to your contacts with maybe individual text messages, and they're going to see some opt-in messaging. And as soon as you get approval to send that text message, after that, you'll be able to send that mass text message. So if you've tried to, say, mass text message a group of individuals, and some of them are saying that they will not be able to receive that message, that's probably why. If you text message them individually and they respond, or they approve it, then that's when you can send that mass text message. Doesn't affect the emails, but does affect those text messages. So I apologize in advance. But again, it's just to help improve deliverability. We don't want those cell phone carriers to think that the text messages you're sending are simply spam and not allow them to go to your users. So that is something, unfortunately, that we're probably just going to see across a lot of technology solutions nowadays. All right, but let's double check here as well. Tina said in the chat, I imported from Outlook. How often does KV Core sync with my Outlook in order to keep the information the same in both files? So Tina, just to get some clarification here, I'm curious, did you use the bulk import method that we talked about from the lead engine? Or did you use the email sync option where you just sync over your Outlook contacts? This is something I know we're not talking about here today. That's a whole nother can of worms. And I think I might actually bring this up. I think we might be talking about this next Tuesday. So I'll dive into ways that you can just bring over contacts from the email sync. Okay. But just because you asked, let's talk a little bit about this. So when you initially sync that over, it can take up to, I believe, up to 24 hours. It usually doesn't take that long. But typically after that's been connected, every hour or so, it will sync over those contacts. I believe it can also detect duplicates based on email address. So again, it should only bring over unique contacts. So it should be updating every hour or so. If you're experiencing some issues with contacts not coming over that way, again, feel free to reach out to support. It always helps additionally if you're seeing that, give them a screenshot. All right, and websites. Let's talk a little bit about web and IDX in KV Core. All right, we talked a little bit about those Zillow reviews, talked about deleting contacts in mass, way to reorganize my website. Okay, so you're just talking about the order in which things are displayed on your website. You want the office block moved to the bottom of the page, taking way too much real estate on the first page of my website. So there are some limitations with the website as far as the order goes. If you are a coding expert, there is a little bit more that you can do with our site editor. I apologize, that's a little bit beyond what I typically teach with websites. I might actually recommend our Done For You services specialist, Heather, who teaches a lot of our Wednesday sessions. I think she's teaching, I switched with her for last week, so she'll be teaching Tuesday's session next week. She can talk a little bit. I think she does have some fun coding hacks. So you might be able to give some advice on that. But for the most part, for the default KV Core websites, it's a little tricky to kind of change the order things are displayed in. But I will mention with our widget templates, it's easy to add additional blocks or potentially remove some blocks from your home page of your site. Okay, that site editor spot is the one site you can't spot you can't get to function. Okay, well, I might recommend playing around with your widgets here. So let me go and share the home page of my site, and I want to point out a couple things that I have here. So I know I don't have your website up here, so I'm not seeing exactly what it is you're seeing, but here's what I've got on my site. So typically at the top, depending on, you might have a more customized site, might have your name and your photo image a little bit lower. That's quite common in some of our semi-custom sites. But if I scroll down here a little bit, I have what's called our modern side-by-side widget added here. So this is the widget. It's what's showing these options for my consumers to get started with a search, find out what their home is worth, subscribe to listing alerts, get pre-approved, or contact me if they have questions. That's all one widget right there. So for a little context, again, Web and IDX, if you go head over to your widgets, let's see. It is funny. I don't know why it's not showing here, but that is what's considered a side by side. Let me double check here. My history. That's very funny that it's not showing that right now. Okay. Now underneath that widget, I've added in a widget that displays resources on my blog. So that's its own separate one. So blog posts. Oh, and is that parent versus child? Yes, my site is considered a child site because I'm working from an individual agent site. If you are an admin, so if you're a company or office admin, you have your larger office or company sites, and that's considered a parent site. And you may need to go back to that parent site to make adjustments. Now, Donna, just from your phrasing there with the parent versus child, I'm assuming you're probably an admin in KV Core, not just an individual agent. Is that correct? Feel free to chime in. I might recommend, nope, just an agent. Okay. Yeah, some of your fields, some of your widgets and things might be inherited by your admin sites. So your agent site is considered a child site. Those admin sites, the larger company and brokerage sites are considered parent sites. So you might be inheriting some of the items that they've got. So you might see a little message up there that to make changes, you'd have to go back to that parent site. So some things may just be inherited. So some things you might not be able to change depending on what your brokerage has decided to apply. Now we can always clear what we've added here. We can reverting to the default would revert to whatever my company's set up for me for my website. But you'll notice I've added in some widgets here. So I added in that blog post widget. I've also added in what's called a featured areas widget. So that is a really popular option as well. So underneath my valuable resources on the blog, here's that featured areas widget. You can choose which areas to feature. I'm located in California near San Diego, so I chose areas local to me. And you can import whatever photos you like there. And you get to choose when someone clicks on an area you've added here, what listings they're directed to on your site. So you could add in additional widgets if you want to add more value to your home page. I do want to mention, for anyone out there, while it is really fun to customize those home pages, don't sweat too much about the details of the home page, as that's typically not where a lot of consumers are going to spend their time. They're going to spend most of their time on your search page or your sell page, or if you've added extra content, they might be searching, they might be looking there. And especially if you're taking advantage of like the lead capture tools in KV Core, like a landing page or squeeze page that you built, they're usually not getting sent to this home page. You're sending them to listings from the search tab, or you're sending them to other information you've added here. So while I know the home page is probably the most fun to design, and a lot of people will care what their home page looks like, keep in mind that's not where your users are going to be spending most of their time. And then let's see as well, going back to the parent site would mean I'll have to ask the brokerage for changes. Reverting back, we'll just go back to whatever changes your brokerage sent. Yeah, you may potentially have to, there may be, without seeing your site, it would be hard to say if you have a custom site, if some things are just there by default and potentially can't be changed this way. So I apologize. I know this is not terribly specific to your account, because it'd be hard for me to, without checking your website personally. But with the featured area widget be automated as if I don't have to create them. So there's no coding necessary here, but I'll go and I'll click on the edit button for this featured area widget. So all I'm really doing is I get to choose the areas. So I'm choosing what the name will be. I'll choose what listings they'll see when they click here, and you upload a photo. So no coding required. There is a little, add in things. You have to do a little bit of typing here, but pretty straightforward. So very easy to do yourself with that featured areas widget. So if it says parent site and we are agents, we can still use it. Yes, you can still use these things. I just mentioned that there might be some things that your brokerage decides to implement on your behalf, sort of thing, but you can always add in additional things to your website, or if you decide you don't like what you've added, you can revert back to the way your admins or brokers have set it up for you. All right, folks. We are at the end of time. I'm so sorry. I do have to wrap it up here. Little reminder for you guys in the chat. Let me share out again a link to this agenda that I made for you guys, a little guide. This webinar was recorded. I'll make sure it gets added to this guide at the end of our, give you a couple hours from now. I'll make sure to update that. Additionally, within 48 hours, it'll get updated to the YouTube channel, and we'll probably try to post it on Facebook as well. All right. I know I've followed it. There's only so much we can fit in an hour here. I definitely want to remind you guys, make sure you're taking advantage of all your resources in KV Core. I know the success meetups are really awesome because you have a chance where you can chime in and ask these questions live, but there's a lot of other webinars you can attend. If you haven't taken the Agent Quick Start course, I usually recommend that for most of our users. We do have learning portal courses on things like website editing as well. We've got YouTube videos on it. We've got a support team. The support articles are so helpful. So lots of resources. If you haven't tried out some of the other ones, I definitely recommend it. All right, folks, thanks for joining, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.